The black girl was unsure of the police officer's reaction when she placed an odd and confidential note in his pocket. But the policeman was determined to solve this tragic mystery, so he phoned for assistance as soon as he found the message. Tiana questioned if she was doing something bold and intelligent, or whether she was going to get herself into even more trouble as she meticulously recorded her target's moves in her mind and counted the steps that separated her from him. Her mother had always told her, after all, to never waste anyone's time unless it was absolutely necessary, particularly if that someone was an officer in uniform. Additionally, the person standing a few steps away from her was on break, which suggested he was worn out, perhaps irritable, and most definitely not interested in young girls from challenging homes. Her life, however, had not always been challenging. Tiana had a great childhood with her parents after being born in the energetic metropolis of New Orleans. Tragic events, however, occurred when she was a teenager. Despite her brief and heroic struggle, her mother lost her life due to a serious illness. The tragedy crushed Tiana, and Marcus, her father, lost all hope for the future and plunged into a profound state of despair. After several months, Marcus, who was in dire need of company following his breakup, eventually met Evelyn. Marcus thought she was sweet at first, but he was unaware of the cold, vicious, and cunning side of Evelyn that lay behind her endearing exterior. Under the pretense of looking after Marcus's house and young, motherless daughter, she had already managed to get her hands on his money since she was only interested in his fortune. However, as she slowly crept into their lives, she cleverly picked Tiana out, attacking her and making her life a living nightmare. She viewed the little girl as a competitor for Marcus's attention and money, and showed no concern for her difficulties coping with her own loss. Often she would let her rage run wild on the little girl, yelling at her mercilessly and constantly insulting and humiliating her whenever she had the chance. Tiana turned to her art for comfort after being left completely broken and defenseless. Since her painting was the only way she could communicate her innermost demons, anxieties, and troubles, she poured her heart and soul into the canvas. A brief but pleasant escape from the realities of her existence was provided by her own universe of meticulously drawn lines and various colors. The passing of her mother and the arrival of Evelyn into her life caused Tiana's formerly contented life to become miserable. She started to hate staying at home because of Evelyn's poisonous presence. She therefore took sanctuary in the library, school, and any other warm location that wasn't her home. A drawing depicting Tiana's depressing and lonely existence, which she had meticulously folded and kept in her pocket, caught her attention one fateful day as she sat by herself in a little coffee shop. She had drawn a violin with no strings in the sketch, signifying her own incapacity to sing and find joy since the death of her mother. Even though she was still young, she had realized that she couldn't handle this circumstance indefinitely, and that she needed outside assistance to preserve herself. Her mother had taught her often as a child, if you ever find yourself in difficulties, locate someone in a uniform and beg for aid. She recalled this instruction when the coffee shop door abruptly opened. This is how she ended herself stalking the police officer who was standing at the store counter, calculating how many steps she would need to go to get by him without drawing too much notice. As Officer Bennett went to the counter to place his order, he failed to see the little girl seated in the coffee shop's corner. He didn't notice, though, as she slipped the painstakingly drawn picture into his pocket as she passed him discreetly on her way out. Tiana watched him from a safe distance for a few seconds, her pulse racing, praying that no one would miss her desperate gesture. When she finally left, she felt a mixture of excitement and worry because she knew that Officer Bennett's intervention may be the turning point that brought about the change she so badly needed. Officer Bennett went about his everyday business, unaware of the piece of paper that was now in his pocket, lost in his own thoughts, and utterly unaware of the seriousness of Tiana's predicament. He took a bunch of cash out of his pocket, thinking only of how he was going to pay for his well-earned coffee. To his surprise, he found the eerie sketch that conveyed Tiana's loneliness and suffering amid the well-known notes. His fingers started to shake slightly as he studied the sketch. He had no idea where it originated or what it signified. However, it was evident that this artwork was not joyful. It was obvious that the person who had drawn it was in agony and distress and was pleading for assistance. However, Who drew it? And without him noticing, who put it in his pocket? As Officer Bennett's eyes swept over the eerie piece of paper in his fingers, questions raced through his head. The gloomy illustrations revealed a world of agony and intense need, striking him like a flash of lightning. He was deeply affected by the unadulterated feelings captured in the lines and colors, which sparked a strong sense of empathy in him. The knowledge hit him like a tidal wave as his gaze landed on the name and address that had been meticulously positioned in the sketch's corner. This was a firm call for assistance, rather than only a melancholy illustration. He was being approached by someone who wanted his assistance. Officer Bennett's police instincts kicked in, and he realized what needed to be done. He had a sixth feel for these types of things from his years in the police force, and he sensed that something wasn't quite right. He understood the impending peril concealed behind those ink and charcoal strokes. He quickly grabbed the radio on his shoulder and called for help without hesitating. As he told his colleagues, policeman, Tiana's name, address, and the amazing tale of what he had just discovered in his pocket, there was a noticeable sense of urgency in his voice. However, the head of police did not approve a surprise visit to the little girl's home based on a simple picture. He had a gut feeling that Officer Bennett was correct, but he couldn't take the chance of a lawsuit if the stringless violin turned out to be a clever school project. In order to learn more about Tiana and her family, he gave the officer instructions. Meanwhile, Tiana remained confined to the stuffy walls of her own house, feeling alone and trapped. Evelyn brutally took on the position of a self-appointed warden, controlling every part of her existence, as though she were imprisoned in a barren jail. Evelyn's strict control and unrelenting expectations proved to be too much for even her own father, who had previously been a rock of support. Tiana was suffocated by negativity and hopelessness due to the poisonous atmosphere that surrounded her. The calm haven of her mother's burial provided her with a sense of relief and optimism as she sought an escape from the emotional upheaval. The tranquility of the cemetery, with its lovely flowers and treasured memories of her mother, gave her a much-needed break from the chaos that ruled her life. Officer Bennett was committed to helping Tiana and Marcus when he returned to the station. In order to have a thorough grasp of their family life, he conducted interviews with friends and neighbors. He gradually pieced together the facts. Marcus was blinded by sadness. Evelyn was a cold and cunning force in their life, and Tiana was carrying a load too great for her young shoulders. Since Evelyn's birth, the father and daughter had entirely ceased smiling, according to all of the neighbors and family friends. They also recalled Marcus grumbling about unforeseen financial difficulties, even as Evelyn spoke about brand new pricey clothes every other day. But they both appeared to be too consumed by their own sorrows to understand that this woman was simply making matters worse. Driven by his compassion and dedication, Officer Bennett devised a meticulous strategy to reveal Evelyn's actual character without endangering Tiana or Marcus. He approached social services for guidance on how to proceed appropriately and made sure they were informed of the serious situation. But he needed to play it cautiously. Officer Bennett could see that Tiana and Marcus's life were in a precarious situation. He was aware that a single misstep may upset the delicate equilibrium and further depress father and daughter. The wounds from their prior experiences were brutally visible, and their fortitude had been put to the test. With a sincere wish to ease their suffering rather than add to it, Officer Bennett's heart hurt for them. Officer Bennett's own daughter was about Tiana's age, which made him feel even more sorry for her. It crushed his heart to even think of his own daughter going through what Tiana had, and he couldn't imagine her having to endure the same hardships. Officer Bennett was motivated by that. He was motivated to keep the lawsuit going by his love for his own daughter. He was aware that this was significant despite the scant proof, and he would want someone to stand up for his daughter's happiness and the truth if she were in this situation. Officer Bennett's carefully thought out and well-coordinated strategy was firmly put into action one nice, calm summer evening. The police force partnered with committed welfare officers and caring social service personnel with the highest accuracy. Together, they quickly closed in on the home, carefully arranging themselves in a line that encircled the whole house. Just as Marcus cautiously returned home from work, Officer Bennett subtly, and with a calming and consoling demeanor, approached him. The officer gently revealed the terrible and agonizing facts of Tiana's extremely turbulent and upsetting family life with tactful empathy, exposing the awful realities that had been kept hidden for far too long. He discussed Evelyn's handling of the girl and her manipulation of Marcus in particular. Officer Bennett not only noticed and recognized Marcus's own unimaginable anguish during this intense and vulnerable moment, but he also shone an awareness of the difficult and daunting process of mourning for his beloved wife. Marcus's formerly unbreakable walls of denial mercilessly collapsed under the weight of each discovery, revealing the terrifying reality that had long escaped his conscious awareness. Now, in a sad understanding, he realized how much agony and suffering Evelyn had put on his beloved and grieving daughter. He experienced a spectrum of emotions, including wrath, despair, desire, and love, as a result of the enormity of his discovery. He just had no idea how to feel. Other police officers arrived on the scene with steadfast determination, while Officer Bennett remained with Marcus, removing Evelyn from the scene with force in spite of her irate and vindictive objections. Although Marcus personally advised her not to reveal her identity in their neck of the woods again, unless she wanted him to return everything she had purchased using his credit cards, they lacked the legal authority to prosecute or arrest her. Everything went smoothly, but what transpired next was even more amazing and touching. During this incredibly difficult and turbulent time, the entire community came together to support Tiana and Marcus totally and willingly, providing them with unwavering support and an abundance of love. These depressing times made the community's immense strength and steadfast fortitude more evident. Until then, they had kept a safe distance, but now they were prepared to lend their support. Life started to get better for this father-daughter pair gradually. Marcus brought light back into his life and regained his happiness. Tiana's paintings, which had previously been melancholy and gloomy, have changed to ones that are full of pleasure, optimism, and enthusiasm for the future. Without Officer Bennett's relentless commitment and reluctance to let the investigation go, none of this would have been possible. His hard work and dedication to supporting a family in need gave them hope and served as a reminder that they weren't facing their problems alone. It is now your turn. How did you feel about this really poignant tale? If you were Tiana, how would you have attempted to get the officer's attention? If you were Officer Bennett and discovered such a depressing and terrifying piece of art in your pocket, how would you have responded? As usual, please feel free to share your views and ideas in the space provided for comments below.